Welcome to the Doctors of Running Virtual Roundtable, where we, a group of doctors of physical therapy, discuss the art and the science to the stuff that we are putting on our feet. We are continuing our conversations. This is episode 67 of the podcast. We started these conversations on our DPT approved awards, which are talking about our favorite and best shoes of 2021 in different categories. We started it in episode 65, where we covered daily trainers. 66 covers performance trainers that are non-plated. And today we are continuing the conversation on performance trainers, which are plated. I know I've gone through this every single time so far, but just because if this is your first time listening about DPT approved, I like to tell people a little bit about our process. So our team of 7 has ran over 14,500 miles, which probably now at this point when this is released is going to be closer to 15,000 plus. Well, it will definitely be over that by the time this is released. And we've tested over 110 shoes this year. And so we've been able to put a lot of miles on a lot of different shoes, and we're giving our thoughts on different categories and what we like from a design standpoint, functionality standpoint, and what shoes we've also enjoyed the most. So that's kind of what we're continuing the conversation on today. Again, today is on performance trainers that are plated options. And again, our definition for performance trainer is a shoe that specializes for up-tempo running workouts and can even double as a racer for some. Is even better if the shoe can handle warm-ups as well and do a few easy miles on the ends of workouts, but typically isn't as comfortable for daily mileage. A couple caveats here. We aren't excluding shoes that are designed to be top racing shoes that are plated. We think that there are some of those that maybe don't function as well for race day, or maybe they do. They will for some. We're not really black and white people. We're pretty nuanced about these conversations because people are complex and different. But just know that those shoes are not excluded from this category. So we have a lot of shoes that are not designed as top marathon racers that are eligible for this award. And then there are other ones that are touted as racers that are also eligible. What do you got, DJ?
Yeah, I just want to say too, historically speaking, a lot of the marathon racers have been performance trainers for a lot of people, including elites.
Before the whole super shoe era.
Before the super shoe era. So
yes.
Do not take anything we say with offense. There may or may not be some racing options that are designed to be racing shoes that we think do fit in the performance trainer category.
Mm-hmm. So. Which can also be a little bit of a nod to them because of their ability to handle some training from a durability standpoint too.
Yeah, or maybe even able to shift gears a little slower where it's not just going fast.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, the Adios Pro 2 is not in this category because that shoe cannot go slow. It's not made for that.
It is not made for daily miles. Do not do that.
Or the Prime. Oh.
Fast only.
I was going to say Prime X. Technically, Prime X is eligible for this award. It did not get any of our votes.
I guess technically I would.
Technically eligible.
Got a 209 in it.
Yeah, I mean, we can't. I mean, people can run fast in these shoes.
Yeah, you can run fast in any shoe.
It's not.
There's probably people that
approved.
I've got a couple of my own theories behind some of these shoes and why they might work for certain people. I'll talk about that off air, but you can certainly run fast in pretty much any shoe.
Yes. Oh, also, I forgot to give this caveat before we jump in. We've been having some technical difficulties with the internet and Riverside. And so we are recording on Zoom. So we do apologize for any audio issues that you might experience or video quality. We are hopefully going to have that figured out. DJ, hopefully he can fix his Chrome browser or whatever is going on with his computer. Sorry, that was probably annoying to get all those coughs. I really apologize.
So, anyway, so we're not using Riverside. We're using a different city right now. We're using Loma Linda.
Is Riverside a city in California?
Yeah, it is. Actually.
Yeah.
There's
I
should have said Redlands.
Riverside.
Yeah, I should have said Redlands.
We're using Redlands FM.
Yeah.
No, we're on Zoom.
On
Zoom. All right. Well, let's jump in. We've done this same way the last couple times. We're going to start with our own individual picks, which may or may not have been our top pick. And we'll kind of explain that as we go. And then at the end, we'll give our consensus pick. We each got to pick our top 3. And if it was our number 1 pick, it got 5 points. If it was our number 2 pick, it got 3 points. If it was our number 3 pick, it got 1 point. The shoe with the most points at the end was our consensus pick. That's kind of how we went about it. And if you have your favorite, plated performance trainer, we'd love to hear what that is as well. So please let us know below. But as we have been, let's just keep the rhythm going. DJ, why don't you start us off with your contributor pick?
Sure. My contributor pick. So this was a very close race, and it almost got my number 1, but it is my number 2, and that is the Mizuno Rebellion. And so we're talking, it's a fiberglass plate, full length. It's bifurcated through the forefoot there. It gives a nice amount of responsiveness and flexibility to it. I mean, it's definitely got some rigidity because of the plate, but it's more flexible than some of the other carbon plated options. Really aggressive lugs, great traction. It's a P-Bax midsole. I mean, honestly, it's a pretty responsive shoe, relatively minimal. I think it's like 8.9 ounces. I mean, this is a performance trainer, and I've been able to do everything in it. I've done 22 miles in it.
22.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did a 22-mile run in it. I've done long tempo runs in it. I do have several miles in the low 5s in it. I don't think I've gone sub 5 in these guys yet, but yeah, I mean, it's a performance trainer. It does a little bit of everything really well. It's not really a master at any of them, so it kind of falls right into this category. So it's like, wouldn't quite race in it, but I would not mind doing workouts in it. I have done workouts in it. So,
and you've talked about in those miles, that you ran in the low 5s, there's a difference between like gutting out a low 5 mile in a shoe and like hating it. And then I hit a low 5 and the shoe did great. Like the way you talked about it, that shoe did well in that pace. Yeah. You weren't like pulling it along.
Yeah. I'm not sure it would really be that much more comfortable faster than that. I think like that's kind of where it starts to cap out for me, which would probably be, I don't know, like, I have no idea. Longer than 10K, shorter than 10 miles for me, as far as like if I was racing the distance.
Yeah.
So that kind of effort, more that longer kind of up tempo threshold type. Hopefully I can go a half marathon at that pace pretty soon. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. But that'd be cool.
That'd be cool. I wouldn't mind a 106, 105, but
right. Sweet. And actually, Matt, why don't you talk next? Because it might make the most sense for you to just continue the conversation.
So my top plated performance trainer was, no, I'm just kidding.
What a minute. That's not what we just talked about.
They've been telling me, they had to remind me multiple times not to actually say what my top pick is, and I keep forgetting. But I do want to talk about this really quick. It is not my top pick, and it's not on this list because technically it's more of a racing flat. But we mentioned this, that the Fuel Cell RC Elite 2 is, for me, not aggressive enough to be used for anything below a marathon. Personally, a lot of people, it's going to work well. And I've used this for daily training, for long runs. I think it's for a lot of people going to be really nice because it's not the most aggressive of a lot of the plated racing flats. And it kind of borders in this category where it's a little bit less aggressive. People want a little bit more soft shoe that can double for some training miles. This might be a really nice option. But going on to the real stuff, my number 2 was the Mizuno Wave Rebellion. And the reasoning for this is because it just worked really well for me. I had a little bit more trouble running fast in this, but for daily training, because I like firmer rides, the way the fiberglass plate is set up acts to me like it provides stability for me, because it's elevated in the midfoot. So it comes up and like, it's almost like this nice, like pseudo guide rail where it comes up on both sides. And that worked super well for me. In terms of daily miles, I have lots of mileage on this shoe. The shoe is super durable. I have 100 miles on this pair, and like there's no wear on there, which is amazing. So durability is awesome. The grip, this is not a trail shoe. I've used it on trails, right? Normally that's David's job, is to take shoes not supposed to go on road on trail.
I have a trail segment in those shoes.
Yeah. So I've done the same thing, and the grip is great. It's durable. Sizing is a little bit, it's the production model that we got now is much better on that.
Yes.
It does fit a little snug. So I opened things up with a little lacing technique for me, but yeah, it was one of my top performance trainers because I could do so much in it. I had trouble at top end speeds, but tempo, stuff like that was really, 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 really good. So I really enjoyed this shoe. Am I doing? Are we doing number 3?
I'll kind of start with it.
You want to do it? Yeah.
So the thing is,
we all had the same top
this-
3 in different orders.
This was the only time so far that, the 3 shoes that hit our top 3, and we try to kind of give them to each other blind to some extent. And so we all had the same 3 in our top 3. So this shoe is actually my number 1 in this category. And that was the Hoka Carbon X2. What I kind of mentioned this when I was talking about the Mach 4, but the rubberized EVA is, although not like the most durable, it's thick enough where it's durable enough. And for me, I can't run in it in the winter because any layer of snow, it just has no chance. I did it last year and it just was awful, to be honest. But through the rest of the year, which is like 2 months of no winter around here. No, it's more than that, but I think it's slightly more aggressive than the Mach 4 in terms of its geometry. You have a little bit more of aggressive rocker. The forefoot is a bit stiffer, but not totally rigid like some of the other like marathon plated racers. You get a little bit of flex from there, which allows it to kind of like be that variable pace for some different types of workouts like fartleks and stuff where you need to go a little slower sometimes. I just think it's a super smooth shoe and obviously can pick up the pace. Walmsley did some incredible things when wearing that shoe, and that, and so he's running. I mean, he wasn't running blazing fast, but he ran fast for a long time. And I think you've talked about, David, you should probably pipe in here too. Like you've kind of topped that shoe out. You felt like in some of your workouts, but for someone in my category, it did everything that I needed it to, from a speed standpoint for, tempo work, obviously, but the warm-ups and cool downs are super nice. And again, just that smooth geometry and the soft outsole just made it feel like I wasn't pounding the ground. And I really enjoyed workouts in that shoe.
Yeah. I mean, to piggyback off of that, I think it kind of goes back to that conversation we were having earlier, saying that some of these performance trainers can also double as racers and historically have done so. And I think this could totally be a viable option for the marathon. I think half marathon, we're kind of pushing it depending on what speed the person is and how hard you're running. But there have been people that have run pretty fast halves in this. I know someone that's gone 104. What's up?
I think for a majority, I mean, talking elite versus the majority of runners out there. Yeah. I think this actually might make another great intro racing shoot for a lot of people. So Hoka did a great job.
Yeah,
also super stable.
I agree completely. It's just not quite as good at those top end speeds, but it's not meant to be. It's an ultra marathon racer. This was designed to break the 100K world record.
Yep.
So if we put that into perspective, that's 62 miles. So
it's crazy.
That's a little bit longer than a marathon. So
that was one of those, watching Walmsley do that was one of the most like exhilarating and heart-wrenching, and then like encouraging when he spoke afterwards, like after just falling short of the world record, but also like beating his own time by a ton. Like there was just so many. It was a lesson in how to respond to running, where you could tell he just was in a really good headspace about it. And Henry and I watched together, as he was running through the finish. So Henry was like cheering him on, and so that was fun.
And also just major shout out, since we're on Project Carbon X2, Rajpal Panu, former St. Mary's Gale.
Hey,
much love. Keep crushing it, brother. I'll see you at CIM.
Sweet. And then also one more thing, the Badgers beat the Gales at the Badger basketball finally gets a tournament win. And I can't be too excited because the Badgers just lost football, so they didn't make the Big Ten championship because I don't need to go into it. It has to do with the no, I'm not going to speak negatively. I don't want to speak negatively. It just didn't go well. Anyway, so right now we've talked about a couple shoes that have been our contributor picks. So Carbon X2, talked about the Wave Rebellion, which for you guys, both of you, is like on the verge. Because I think we, in this category, we debated between performance trainer and versatile, and having a versatile like category. And our picks would have changed a little bit depending on how we did it, but we wanted to go in the performance trainer just because we wanted to differentiate it from daily training a little bit more. So anyway, And then you talked about RC Elite 2 being another option that has the durability and a bit of that versatility to be able to do different types of speed work. And obviously can double, like we said, this category of things can double as a racer. And obviously many people are racing in the Carbon X, Carbon X2, and in the RC Elite. So,
And
David, do you have one more you wanted to talk about?
Which I totally agree with David on this. This is a great shoe.
Yeah.
I totally agree with him on this.
Bring it in.
No negative way.
The Rocket X. The Hoka One Rocket X. So obviously this is designed to be a racing shoe. People have run fast in this shoe. This is what the Hoka pros, 99% of them are wearing when it comes to race day, if it's marathon or below. And but for a lot of people, it's just not quite as responsive as some of the other options out there, and it feels a little bit more trainer like. It's not quite as aggressive as some of these other racing shoes, and you can slow down the pace a little bit. You can get some long run type efforts in it. You can obviously run fast in this shoe, but I think it definitely dabbles on that performance trainer side of things. I mean, I've taken this on 15-mile runs, fine. It's like, but I don't know if I would quite want to reach for it on race day. You know what I mean? Out of the lineup of the shoes that are available and the shoes that work for me, I don't know if I'm quite there, but amazing shoe to work out in. It's a great shoe. I have nothing against the Rocket X. I think it ever so closely dabbles to that performance trainer. I mean, the Carbon X2 definitely is like, boom, it's in there. But this one is more on that line where it's like, okay, it's a racer, like first and foremost, but it's a little bit performance trainer too.
Yep. Totally. Go ahead, Matt.
I had that same experience. When we first got that shoe, I was at a weekend course, the Spinal Manipulative Institute, and I something happened. I think I was doing too many things at once, the PhD. And for whatever reason, that was the only shoe I grabbed. I think I thought I had more shoes in my car and I didn't. And that was the only shoe I had that weekend. And I run a lot. I run multiple times a day. So for workout,
he runs way more than I do.
Yeah.
It's so weird how much you run. Like, I'm just like, no wonder you have no time to do anything. You're just like always running.
Literally the only thing that keeps me calm is just keep running so I don't panic. But it did fine. I used it for a shakeout run. I used it for a fartlek, a workout. I was crazy and did a hill workout as well and a long run. There's a lot going on that weekend and I just needed vent. So do not look at my training and go, he's got a plan. There's no plan. It's just whatever happens. I'm either pacing my wife or I'm going nuts. So, but it was great. And I think that there's a lot of, I know we said we weren't going to say versatile, but the Rocket X has a lot of that and it's really comfortable. So another one you can handle warming up, cooling down, feels fine. It is a little bit lower drops. If you need a little bit more, that maybe not much, but it was just comfortable. It was a good shoe, just not the shoe I would reach for racing either.
Also, speaking of that, just for anybody wondering, we are doing a whole award and episode on race day shoes. So we'll do an episode on that.
Yeah, you can't go a whole year and do an entire award series without talking about racing, right? I mean, what's the point of even having super shoes if you don't talk about them?
If you don't,
especially since so many came out this year.
That's a great line right there. All right, you guys ready? We'll do our consensus pick.
I didn't say this the whole time this time. I would like some acknowledgments. Also, I don't have it anymore, so that helps.
Yes.
Yeah, so grab it and then put it.
Question for you guys. This is how I'm going to announce it. Are either of you Survivor fans? Like, do you watch Survivor? No. Neither of you? Okay, well, I'll give you a little.
My family does. Not my thing.
I don't own a TV, so.
Okay, weird. No, that's great. That's wonderful. But here's kind of one of the things. So it's hard to win the game of Survivor. Okay. And I haven't seen all the seasons. So for you Survivor, like people out there, you can tell me I'm wrong, but don't, because I don't want any spoilers, because my wife and I just picked up Survivor last year and we're just like binge watching to get to season 40. We have not watched season 40 yet, which is an episode or a season where they have 20 previous winners come back to compete against each other.
It's one of those shows they pump out like 3 seasons a year. That's
2
how
a
they
year.
have 40.
Yes, it's crazy.
If that was your question, I don't know. I just see.
Shouldn't a show, I've never seen it, but a show called Survivor, if you lose, you die, right? Is that what that
No,
means?
oh my gosh. This
I'm
is
just
not
kidding.
Squid
Yeah,
Game.
I mean, it's
I'm just
Squid Game.
kidding.
Not Squid Game.
They take you to an island and you play Squid Game. That is exactly what happens.
I'm just
No,
kidding. I do know the premise of the show, but I thought that just sometimes
So
I
anyway,
have thoughts and I say things. So
as far as I know, there to this point, until season 40, obviously a winner is going to win again. But before season 40, there's only one person who has ever won the show of Survivor twice. 2-time winner, which means she took home $1 million twice. Her name is Sandra. And she has this line when she comes back for a third season, and then she comes back for season 42. When she comes back to a third season, she keeps saying the line to people like, the queen's still queen. Queen's still queen. And so basically, I think our consensus pick, bringing this all the way back, Queen's still queen. We have picked the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2. I'm holding up the Run Shield version. That's not the version we have. That's the one I have in my hand. But the Endorphin Speed 2, which arguably, is the shoe of the year last year. Queen's still queen. It wins performance trainer from us this year. And David, why don't you start talking about it first? Oh, Matt, you look really excited. Why don't you start talking first?
It's fine.
You go. Your face looks so disappointed.
My one comment on this is, Nathan and I think David, you might have had a similar experience, but Nathan and I had the same thing where they supposedly didn't change the sole, but the heel security was noticeable, or the heel stability was noticeably different. And I don't know if it's just from changing the upper, but it wasn't like the first version was too unstable in the heel for me to utilize as a performance trainer. It was like, I can only do workouts in this. I can't handle daily training in this. That's just it. That totally changed. This version to me didn't feel as fast as the first one, but it felt more trainer-like, and I could get a lot more miles on it. Even though, again,
agreed,
the midsole felt different. Not in a bad way, in a great way. It felt more like, it's not a stability shoe by any means, but it just had enough there that I was like, I can handle daily training in this. But I don't know what happened, because it was really supposedly just an upper change, but it just felt different.
I mean, this one felt faster to me.
It did.
Oh, okay. Weird. Really?
That's great. That's good. So why do you think so?
Yeah, let's talk about this.
I think it's the upper. The upper security is significantly better on this. Your foot's on the platform. You just get more ground feel. You feel more connected to the shoe and the ground underneath you. And I think because of that transition from that heel through the midfoot onto the forefoot, going through toe off, that whole transition just felt a lot smoother to me. And I felt like that toe off, because of all of that, I got a little bit more out of it. And so I could go a little bit slower than I could in the other model, and I can go a little bit faster than I could in the other model. So for me, this, even though it's just an upper change, it was a big step up. The platform itself does feel the same to me. It doesn't feel any different, but I feel so much more locked into it. And that is a game changer, because the first one, I did like the first one. I didn't have a problem with it. I know a lot of people had like rear foot instability issues. But this one, I just felt so much more connected to the shoe. And I've done some solid runs in this. And I mean, some of my best long runs have come in this shoe. And yeah, I mean, it's a shoe that does have a special place in my heart for that reason. It's like one I wouldn't quite race in. It's one I wouldn't train in, like for daily miles, but long run, workout, things like that. It's definitely something that if I'm not reviewing other shoes, it's something on my mind. And yeah.
No, I agree. I couldn't get many miles in version 1 because of the rear foot instability, and mainly on my right foot, where I've had some pretty significant ankle sprains, like back when I was in soccer. And we've talked about ankle sprains on the podcast before, but there's long-term implications for severe ankle sprains in terms of laxity. And so I had issues big time in the version 1. Version 2, they really did lock in the heel so much better. And additionally, the way that the upper is integrated, it's a little less like a little less rigid than the first version. And what that did is part of that midsole and part of the sidewall like dug into my foot in version 1 and just kind of pushed it weird in the heel. And in version 2, it's just so much smoother and it's just a better upper, and you get a lot of the same performance. I think it gained a little bit of weight, which is why for me it did feel a little bit I felt like it did just as well picking up the pace. Has a lot more bounce to it than in even the Pro does, in my opinion. I think the Pro is a lot more stiff and rigid and like rolling, whereas I think that the Speed 2 has more flexibility because it's just the P-Bax plate, and it just has more bounce, and it has, you can really feel the foam, especially in the heel, compressing more so than in the Pro 2. And so it's a really great performance trainer. This is one of those picks. So I put this as my number 1. For me, even though it's not my favorite shoe, I think it's the best one for the most people. And so the only issue I have is because of the excessive laxity that I have in that ankle. Because my other foot does fine. It's just that I have going on like limits my use of it for really long stuff. But when I want to like enjoy a workout, it's the shoe I would pick out because it can go fast, and the lock in of the heel is really good. It's just a fun shoe to run in.
Is it P-Bax or nylon plates? I'm not trying to correct you.
I think it's like the same difference. I think it's an infected nylon.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, nylon.
That's okay.
It's probably the same thing. I don't know. Material science
plastic.
People tell us.
Someone help us.
Yeah. Good point, but good to point that out. Go ahead, Matt.
Can we also so that was also one of my top picks as well, just for what Nathan said. I think it's a great shoe. It's not necessarily my go-to shoe, but one of the reasons that I personally chose it as a top 1 was simply because it works really well for such a large group of people. And I think the upper lockdown, people don't talk about uppers a lot. And I think we had an episode on this where we talked about this a little bit more, but uppers make a huge difference. It's one of the first things that you're going to notice about shoe is like, how is your foot lock in? How's the fit? And I think that the update here was so good because oftentimes because right now most shoe companies are doing like a 2-year cycle for the midsole, right? So for the middle year, they just do an upper change. And a lot of times people are like, they complain saying, what is this shoe really new? This one did. And you got to pay attention to fit. Every part of the shoe is important, whether it's the midsole, the fit, the lockdown. And I think this is a great example of how that happens. And that's one of the reasons this shoe works well for people. And we're super fortunate that we get a lot of shoes sent to us. We do buy some of the shoes on here, but not everybody can afford that. And I think a lot of people ask like, hey, what's one shoe that might work for me? Like if I'm just looking for a shoe I can handle daily training, workouts, and racing. The Speed 2 is just one of those shoes because that's kind of how it was designed, right? It's supposed to be the lightweight trainer companion to the Pro, but plenty of people are going to be able to use it as a racing flat, especially people that find the like carbon plated shoes too stiff. So it was a really nice update from Saucony.
Oh, and just to add to that, if you have a hard time with lower drops, or you feel like this is a little bit too aggressive, or that rocker is a little too sharp, the Mizuno Rebellion is almost the exact same shoe. It's just like a higher drop,
firmer for sure,
slightly firmer. It's a very, very similar shoe, but it's a little bit more forgiving on the calves. And
yeah, it's definitely more stable. I would say significantly more firm Rebellion, but David and I experience firmness very differently. We've learned.
He thought the Bondi X was like marshmallow soft.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Okay, hold on. We do know. So I'm going to nerd out for you two based on some of the research that I've done that
we know
perception of comfort is totally different depending on the person, which is why we always suggest if you find your mechanics and your taste match one of us, stick with that person because you'll probably be similar.
Yeah, and if you want to be wrong, stick with David.
I like the Bondi X. I have nothing against the Bondi X, but it is not marshmallow soft.
And I think it's wicked soft. So that's why I joke about that. But I think, there's a difference between Rebellion and the Speed 2 in terms of the Speed 2 is going to be softer. And it's definitely, but they both have responsiveness. It just comes in a different capacity, and just a great shoe. Queen stays queen.
Yep.
Sure.
It's more fun to do references like that when people get it, but I had to explain it all. And
I just don't think it's that great of a reference, Nathan.
Well,
I
appreciate your feedback.
I do think it's an appropriate reference.
I'm still mourning over the Wisconsin St. Mary's loss.
Oh,
so,
no.
I mean,
but I feel good. I feel good about it because you beat us last year. It felt like it just evened it out. I didn't even
came
feel
back full circle.
Yeah. I didn't feel triumphant in it. I was just like, oh, that's fun.
And I think Wisconsin's a very underrated team too. I think
that's kind of you.
Yeah. I think they're way better than people are giving them credit for. So
there's this really great diagram that I had a friend send me where it's I should look it up. I'm going to find it. Give me 10 seconds. I'm pulling it up. Here it comes.
To our listeners and viewers, I am sorry for starting this tangent.
All right, I found it.
About to embark upon.
So it says, oh man, I don't know if we can see.
I can.
It says,
no, I can see the triangle, but I can't.
Okay,
I can see the badger.
It's a triangle with a badger in the middle, and it says, I start to believe again. Arrow 2, I get my hopes up. Arrow 2, I get disappointed, with an arrow right there saying you are here. And then an arrow back to I start to believe again. I get my hopes up. I get disappointed. That's what the Badgers do to you. So anywho, I'm really curious about what Saucony does. Sorry, this is just 90-degree turn back to our actual conversation. I'm really curious to see what they do with the Speed 3 next year, knowing that that cycle that Matt talked about. It'll see if they take a shoe that's been wildly popular and has worked for a lot of people. We'll see if they make any major changes to it, either with a new foam or if they change geometry and maybe widen it a little bit to make it even differentiated more from the Pro. I'm curious to see what they do. Yeah. But it's all our best guess is the blah blah blah. That's it. Oof. I think the fact that I just mumbled means that we should wrap this up.
We should.
So there it is. That's our plated performance trainer DPT approved awards. Consensus goes to the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2. And then we had the Mizuno Wave Rebellion got the next amount of points, just barely missed our consensus pick. And then also the Carbon X2 was picked by all of us to be on the top. And then we talked about some other options. But if you want to listen back at our previous episode to this one, we talk about non-plated performance trainers that could also double as racers. And we actually hit a lot of shoes in that episode. So feel free to jump back to that. And we just appreciate you guys following along with this. And we'll be jumping on in the conversation next time with another category, which is yet to be determined. But good luck actually, when this airs, DJ, you'll be done with CIM.
Will I? No, when this airs?
Because this is going to air. This will air not this Wednesday, but the one after.
I'll leave that up to our media wizard. Shout out, Bach. Yeah. Either way, I'm excited. I feel pretty good about things, and we're just going to go have fun and enjoy it. I mean, the trial standards and everything, nothing's published yet, so it just go out there, have fun. And
you get to go have fun.
It's going to be fun.
Yep. And you picked your shoe. Do we want to talk about that?
No.
Okay, great. Well, we'll talk to you guys next time. Have a great night, day, morning, whatever it is when you're listening to this.